What's up, guys? Max Finn here, Unicorn Perspective, episode number 14. We have a special fill-in guest today. Our friend Damon Wright hopped in. Scott Olford couldn't make it. He had a doctor's appointment. And although I was on Facebook and I saw him live, and I was like, I messaged Ronnie, our assistant. I was like, what's going on? He said he couldn't do our interview, and I see him on Facebook live stream. He's like, he has a doctor's appointment. He had to cut it off. I was like, okay, Scott, that's fine. But this is going to be interesting because Damon, who we're chatting with today, is going to be able to share some stuff that comes from a different perspective. So, before we went live, we were talking about there's this kind of constant conversation online on podcasts and live streams and YouTube videos, and it's all about like how to grow your business and how to acquire customers and how to optimize conversions, and it's all exciting, right? I think a lot of online marketers and entrepreneurs are just focused on growth, and unfortunately, sometimes, I wouldn't say sometimes, you probably know this more than me, probably pretty frequently, that leads to neglecting some pretty important things in your business that leave you open to some pretty sizable liability down the road. So today we're going to talk about the law. I'm sure we're going to talk about a lot more stuff than that, right? But some of the stuff we're going to talk about is just what you can do as a marketer, as a business owner online in 2019 going to 2020 to best protect yourself, to make sure that you're not making some common mistakes. And like I told Damon, we never have prescriptive questions, especially for a last minute swap in like this. And so this is going to be an open-ended discussion. We'll see where this goes. Anybody that's in paid traffic training, stay tuned for the end. We're going to hop into a Q&A. So if you have questions for Damon, and you're right, it's GRSM, right? It's four names. You got what's Gordon Reese Scully and Manzacani.
Just call the firm. Yeah, Gordon Reese is fine.
Gordon Reese. So the SM, they haven't gotten to the main name yet, right? Just Gordon Reese.
Yep.
Well, it's awesome to have you, man. I'm really excited to chat with you today.
Thanks, Max. It's great to be here. Do you want me to first just give some background about what I do, who I am?
Yeah, I would love that, because usually I'm pretty good at that, because a lot of people I talk to are very similar. But when it comes to lawyers, people, legal professional, like you're probably best to explain what you do, because I can't explain it for you.
Sure. Yeah, my pleasure. So I've been practicing law for 23 years. People tell me that I look young for my age, which is flattering, but also can sometimes be frustrating, of course, if you're in court in front of a judge and they don't realize you've been doing this for a while. But my background is originally kind of a jack of all trades business litigator. So breach of contract cases, trade secret misappropriation cases, just disputes over money between businesses, as well as years ago I used to do a fair amount of criminal defense, white-collar criminal defense. And so I was traveling around, going to court all the time, and loving that. But when I became a partner at my old firm back in 2005, I started to feel like I need to do more to have clients that are long-term clients, not just they got sued, I handle it, they feel good about the result, but they didn't really enjoy the process, and they say, Damon, thanks a lot, we love you, we hope we don't have to talk to you for a long time, because this was frustrating. And so I thought, all right, what can I do to have more permanent relationships with clients, because I really like these people and I want to help them. And I realized that in the course of being their lawyer in litigation, I learned a lot about their company and ways to strengthen their company and protect their company. So it could be that as a result of litigation, I was reviewing their contracts, and I said, okay, we can make your technology license agreement stronger. Or I'm looking at their employment documents and saying, okay, you can do more things here. Or they need to apply for copyright protection, all these things. And I thought, okay, if I can have clients think of me not as just their litigator, but Damon is our lawyer, and maybe it's work that I don't do particularly more on, but other people around the firm are really subject matter experts, that's a great way for me to build client relationships and maybe easier than constantly traveling all over and staying up all night, getting ready for court.
Yeah.
And so I started doing more and more of that. And at my old firm, a firm called Venable had always represented a lot of infomercial direct response to consumer type of companies. So, TriStar, All-Star, Telebrands, those types of companies. And so that exposed me to advertising law, trademark, copyright issues for the direct-to-consumer industry. And then around maybe 2010 or so, I started doing more and more representation of web-based e-commerce retailers, and started representing some folks out in San Diego who recommended me to their friends, who recommended me to their friends and their friends, and between shows like Affiliate Summit, Traffic and Conversion, internet retailer that's not here anymore, but various shows like that just came to really feel comfortable representing e-commerce retailers, lead generators, agencies, networks, other service providers, payment processors, fulfillment companies. So now I probably have well over 50 clients that are all different verticals, and every day sort of handling all variety of things that come up in the moment. It could be that an employee walked out the door with the new software the company's been working on, yep. Or that there's a competitor who's ripping our client's website that they've optimized and split tested, or a disgruntled consumer who's used words like FTC or consumer class actions, or of course it could be consumer class actions or FTC matters. And then as well, companies that are poised in trying to strengthen their house in order to be acquired, or looking to raise private equity money. So kind of a broad array of different things that I do for clients. And my law firm, I just moved over to this firm back in September, so just a few months ago. I've been at my old firm for 22 years, but I moved over to Gordon Reese because I thought it would be a better platform for my clients. We've got about 1,000 lawyers across the country, so with clients in Boston, South Florida, Miami, New York, Chicago, Boise. We've got offices in those states, so that helps with not necessarily the national advertising law kind of stuff, but more of the local business kind of day-to-day stuff they have that I've got colleagues I can turn to for things like that.
That's awesome.
So, long rambling answer, but yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, that's great. Like, so I guess what I'm curious about is, like, so you go from, there's people that are reaching out to you because they need a lawyer, and then there's it's kind of reactive versus proactive protection, right? And obviously people that are reactive, it's for usually a very bad reason, and you're just being connected with that bad taste and that bad vision and that all the bad feelings they have with that experience. And it's like, okay, well, let me move away from this. Let me create something more consistent, more stable, more scalable, and more positive in the relationship. I guess, you know, where are people like in, I know this is a broad umbrella and a big group of people, but like, what's the most common reason that somebody decides to like, I guess two questions. First would be, what's the most common reason that you're experiencing people coming to you and saying, I need your help, right? Or I want to retain a counsel, like a, you know, chief counsel or whatever you know, specifically call yourself for the title. I guess that's the first question. Second one's like, when do you think somebody should start doing that?
Right. I'll answer the second question first. There's a natural tendency to think, I don't have much money. Yeah. I want to spend all my money on buying traffic, and that's sensible. Folks are focused on bringing in that revenue, and they're thinking, okay, if I spend money with a lawyer, that's a cost, and I can think about that down the road once I scale, and I get that. I'd say it's because of that you need to make sure that that you're talking with a lawyer who understands your business, understands the different forces and different ways you could be under attack. So I guess to answer the first question, you should have a lawyer involved early on. Absolutely, but it should be a lawyer that doesn't have to understand e-commerce, the ecosystem, what clicks and conversions and traffic and PPC and all those things mean. You really should talk with a lawyer who understands this, because you will spend a lot of money if you're a very, very good lawyer down the street who handles just traditional corporate transactions work. That's not necessarily the niche you need to be able to hit the ground running. I've had lots of clients, in terms of when the right time is, clients that approach me when they are just at the very beginning stages, and they've got a good friend, and they've got an idea, and they've seen other people making money with whatever particular product, and they think they've got something better, or they want to do what other people are doing. And right at the very outset, if you're going into business with someone else, you want to make sure you've got a really well-written operating agreement that lays out in black and white how decisions are going to be made, and what happens if there's one member that wants to do this and another member that wants to do that. It's when you have those bright lines that you're able to actually keep the friendship going, because people can always refer back to that document, as opposed to haziness and the natural human inclination to view things with a different perspective just because we can't help but being be naturally biased. And that's when people end up fighting over money. And it's not that either person is selfish, but it just happens. So first thing would be always have a good operating agreement. If you're going in with a business partner from very early on, before people start putting money into something or putting real time into it. And then the next step would be your website. And very easy to do, but to just have a lawyer who understands e-commerce look at your website before it goes live. The most important and simplest advice for that would be on your checkout page. If you're selling on a subscription billing model, making sure you are providing clear and conspicuous disclosure of the billing terms, and then having an unchecked checkbox where the consumers agree to the terms of sale. And then in your terms of sale, the terms that most people don't ever read, having a provision that says that there is a waiver of any class action and that the consumer agrees to mandatory arbitration.
Do you mind if I stop you there? Because I want to clarify something. Because so I have some stories and I'll share today while we're talking. But I think because I see people's funnels all day, every day. People ask me for consulting to review things, and I see so many people that are that are on that gray area, right? They're kind of straddling a line. They're using some language that probably is pushing a boundary, or they're not including language, or they should be including it. They're doing something in the checkout process they probably shouldn't be doing. And I don't think a lot of people, and this might be just a generalization, maybe I'm wrong here, but based on what I'm seeing, this is my assumption, truly understand the consequences to something bad happening, right? Like, I think the assumption is, well, I'm just getting started and it's only a few hundred customers or a few thousand buyers. I'm not doing big volume yet, and I'll figure it out when I do big volume. And they skirt some stuff, and they don't follow through, and they don't really get a lawyer, they don't review things, they don't have the right content and legal wording in place. Like, and I'll share some of the stuff that happened to us, but from just a understanding the law perspective, like, what does a consequence look like? And maybe you don't have to share like exact examples, but just like at a theory, like, hey, we had a client who basically forced somebody into continuity, and the person thought they were buying a drink, but all of a sudden they got subscribed to monthly subscriptions of this, but it didn't say it anywhere, and they couldn't cancel it, and they got billed for a year. Like, what does that look like penalty wise to a company?
Yeah, no. So if you got consumers agreeing to the terms of sale by checking a box and agreeing to the terms of sale, and the terms of sale have the mandatory arbitration provision, the consumer class action waiver language, then you could still get sued by a consumer, but it would be in an arbitration. But by having that, it's unlikely that a consumer class action lawyer would go after you. But if you are selling a product on a subscription billing model and you haven't complied with the law surrounding that, the FTC and state attorneys general will go after you with a vengeance. And so what you're talking about, there are companies right now that are selling, could be skin cream, muscle, weight loss, male enhancement, whatever, or even a subscription box. Yep. Or an informational product where people aren't getting anything delivered to their door. And on their checkout page, they aren't disclosing that there's a trial period. They disclose the trial period, but not what the charge will be if the consumer does not cancel. Or they've got it in fine mouse print on the bottom of the screen. Or it's on desktop, but it's not on mobile. The federal law is ROSCA. It's kind of a strange acronym, ROSCA. It stands for the Restore Online Shoppers Confidence Act. And then several states, including California, have analogous statutes. The FTC about every month and a half will bring an enforcement action against one of these kinds of companies, e-commerce retailers that aren't complying with ROSCA. And the consequences are as severe, draconian as they could possibly be, short of going to prison. So what the FTC often does, again, like once every month or two, is they go into court and they have almost a phone book size stack of filings with lots of exhibits and screenshots and consumer complaints and mystery shopper declarations. And they describe that this company is running credit cards without having provided the disclosures. They ask the court to enter an injunction freezing the assets of the company, freezing the assets of the owners, freezing all servers and other electronic information systems. And the other side, the defendants, don't even know this case is existing. They don't have any knowledge of it. It happens
So just
what's called
one
ex
day,
parte.
you're just locked up. All your bank accounts, everything are shut down.
Yes, and it's only after the judge signs that order and gives it to the U.S. Marshals that the defendants find out about this case that's been filed against them. And oftentimes, for all practical purposes, even though the case has just started, it's for all practical purposes, it's already over.
Yeah.
Because they don't have access to their information, they don't have access to their accounts, and their various business partners, understandably, don't want to do business with a company that's now the subject of an FTC investigation. So it could be that the company has a defense, but it's an uphill battle trying to get in front of the court, and even if it wins at the end of the day, the company doesn't really have anything left to show. And it's also a real bad situation because with bank accounts being frozen, there's probably no time that a company or its owner could use a lawyer more than right then and there.
But they can't afford it.
They can't. They don't have the funds. They don't have access to the funds because they're frozen. So there are a lot of horror stories. I think people sometimes feel like there's safety in numbers. They see that other folks are doing this and that. It's pretty serious. There was an op-ed about 4 or 5 months ago in a newspaper. One of my colleagues at another firm wrote this and said, there are countries where all of your assets can be seized, your accounts can be frozen, all of this can happen, and you don't have your day in court. It all happens in a matter of hours. And one of those countries is Syria. One is North Korea. That kind of thing. Kazakhstan, perhaps, and also the United States. So, yeah.
That's terrifying. I mean,
I think Kazakhstan's actually a pretty good country. I'm sorry to insult the Kazakhs.
I think, they brought us Borat, so they're good. But yeah, it's crazy because what you said is really interesting, which is like the safety in numbers, right? It's like there's so many people doing it, they're not going to go after me, right? You just feel safe, and it's such a flawed rationale to do things the wrong way, because if you're running a business, I'd at least like to think this is the goal, that you're going to be big one day, like you're going to grow the business and become a big business and be very successful. And if you plan for that to happen, eventually you're going to be on somebody's radar. If you're doing things the wrong way, if you're in that gray area, something is going to happen. It's a matter of like when, right? I don't think it's a matter of if, it's just a matter of when either you get too big and on someone's radar, or you're just out of business anyway because you pissed off too many customers and they don't want to buy from you anymore because they got tired of, being charged when they weren't paying for something, and then they told all their friends and they posted about it everywhere in BBB, and now you have a tarnished reputation.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is FTC, Federal Trade Commission, but I think we're going to see more and more the Department of Justice getting involved, and they have been bringing some criminal cases on this pattern. I mean, imagine how, look, I'm not trying to preach here, and I've got clients who, tell me the worst things they've done, and I still represent them and do the best I can for them. And, but, we'd all be pretty pissed if we went to a bar, bought a beer, thought we were just paying for that one beer, and came to find out that every month thereafter the bar was charging us for another beer.
You get a craft beer subscription every month.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't sign up for that. I bought one beer. And so, the Better Business Bureau obviously has been focused on this for a while. The FTC understands exactly what's going on. They understand what's been going on with the use of signers or nominees to get additional payment processing for companies that are doing trial offer neutral work, trial offer neutral business. And of course the payment processors in MasterCard and Visa understand all. So it's for folks that are doing trial offer neutral, and I know you've got clients who are doing other things and really building brands, but for folks in that line, I think that they'd be wise to look for other opportunities to take what they've learned about internet marketing and apply it to building a brand. It's more work. It requires more creativity, but yeah, that's definitely, I think, a lot of challenges with that type of business.
I totally agree. I think if you're going to spend, the way to look at it is, if you're going to invest your time, and at some point, once you've made a certain amount of money, you realize like time becomes way more valuable. And if you're going to put your time into something, put it into something that actually is going to be around a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that you could actually sell one day. Like, I mean,
Exactly.
it's still interesting to me that so many people are still doing, just affiliate marketing full time or trial, continuity, like forced continuity, all these things. And it's because they're making a lot of money, but it's like, you're spending more time just on compliance and merchant processors and all the things just keep it up and running, as opposed to actually putting that time into building a brand or an asset or something. And it's
Right.
I don't see a single major brand that people know about that's worth billions, tens of billions, hundreds of billions, that is doing anything that way, right? It's like, you look at Apple
Right.
and Coke and like these iconic brands. Like, sure, you can say what you want about Apple and their what they're doing with their marketplace, competing against their customers and privacy. Like, that's a whole nother discussion. But they're
Right.
they care about their customers. They provide their customers with a great product that delivers on what they said they're going to do, and they're focusing on building lifetime value and building an actual brand that's worth something. And it's good to hear that. I think like you're also recommending people should start shifting away from that, because it seems like it's just every day the likelihood of being able to launch a business like this and then the length of time you could run it is shrinking every day that goes by.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. And it's fun for me to watch my clients succeed, to be part of that success. I mean, I have a client that I've represented for about 7-8 years. Before I knew them, they were the founder was an affiliate making tens of thousands of dollars a day, and decided this is really not sustainable because I'm not really confident about the quality of the advertiser I'm driving traffic for, and I'm worried about regulatory risk. And said, let me set out and start a company. And that took some courage to do, but now the company is doing hundreds of millions of dollars. And you can look back over the history and see where there were situations where there was an attack from consumer class action lawyers, there was an attack from a state attorney general, there was an attack from a competitor, and to have really be kind of helping navigate around and over those obstacles, to see a company just build, give back to their community, have employees that really feel like this is a company they're proud to work for, great culture, in-house counsel, where I'm saying, okay, you're spending money on legal, I think you could spend less if we have the right in-house counsel. To see all that evolution, maturity, and that, see this company that's a really strong brand. I don't want to name client names, but
Yep.
That's really rewarding, and I've replicated that, or helped clients to replicate that kind of situation time and time again. So it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah,
And
it's amazing to
just
see
like my clients.
people succeed,
Yeah.
and see people win
Right.
because of something, especially if you have a small part in that, right? Like knowing that there's something, obviously it's up to that person to be successful in everything they do, but to have a tiny part in seeing that, that growth and that journey, and seeing the person do the right thing and also make a lot of money, it's got to be a pretty cool feeling.
Yep. Exactly.
So
Yeah.
that's the positive stuff. I want to go back to what you were talking about before. You referenced something that I thought was interesting. I've always wondered this. My wife went to law school, and my uncle's a lawyer, and I've never really had this discussion because I don't know anybody or like actually talk to anybody that is a criminal defense attorney or something. But I was always curious, like, how difficult is it to sit there and somebody has to come into you, and let's say somebody comes to you and they say like, and obviously I know there's privacy. I'm not asking to like talk about specific. And this is just like a general feeling question. Somebody comes to your office and they say, okay, I'm running this company, and basically for the last 5 years we've been taking people's credit cards and just charging them a ton of money without telling them, and we're going after senior citizens, and all this terrible shifting product that's got bad stuff in it, and you're just like, this is like a bad person, but you still have to represent them. Like the more they're telling you, it's like, I can't tell anybody this, and this is my client, and I need to go into court, and I need to defend them to the best of my ability, and argue their case. I'd imagine that's got to be a really hard skill to develop, because I can't. It's hard enough for me to talk like even positively about people that I don't like 100% respect and trust and like.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, how do you do that? How do you handle that?
Yeah. So let me separate out two different scenarios to me that are very different. Um, so in the criminal defense realm, doing work as a court-appointed attorney or as a public defender, when the government is going after you in that realm, my mindset is, and as a private attorney, my mindset is that when you defend this person's constitutional rights, you're defending everyone's constitutional rights.
Okay. Yep.
And that's the most noble thing you can do. I mean, John Adams defended British soldiers before the Revolutionary War. That's, I think that's the best, most respectful thing a lawyer can do, is to sacrifice their own reputation because they know this person is entitled to a fair trial, entitled to a zealous defense. And I have enormous respect for that.
Yep.
Right. So that's that scenario. Other scenario, not criminal, civil. Client comes to me and says, I've done all these bad things and I want you to represent me. I've turned work down. I do. I mean, I also have clients that have done bad things and they tell me, and it's confidential, and I work hard for them. But I really do like to like my clients, and there has to be something about the client that I like. I want to hear something about how they want to change their ways, that they've got some remorse, that they're mature, that they're evolving, that they're doing something in their community, that they're a good father, husband. I get that we can all be led down the wrong path, and there's temptation that people can be greedy and selfish and narcissistic, have substance abuse problems or whatever. So I'm a pretty non-judgmental person, but I don't feel like there's a calling to necessarily represent that person if I really just think they're a total asshole, self-centered jerk. It's not going to be a long-term relationship, because I'm going to tell them things they don't want to hear. They're going to probably ask me to do things I'm not going to do. But back on this side of things, I think it's in the criminal realm, especially if someone who, for a lot of reasons related to structural challenges in our society, ended up in the criminal justice system. I feel like that's fantastic. And I represented a guy who was convicted of murder, sentenced to death, and was on death row in Alabama for 21 years, and got his conviction and sentence vacated.
Wow.
And I represented him since 2001. So all the trials were over with, the direct appeals were over with, and from about 2001 to 2000, currently, but still represent him. But I was doing investigation and going into court on a regular basis down in Alabama, because he did not get a fair trial. And whether you think he did it or did not, and the evidence was lots of problems with the evidence at trial, and a lot of evidence pointing to another person as a suspect that didn't come out in the original trial. But one way or the other, at the end of the day, he did not get a fair trial, and it didn't matter to me what happened, because I knew that his defense counsel in the trial wasn't what it should have been under our Constitution. So that
what do you do at that point? And I know that, like, and listen, anyone that's watching this, I know that this might not be, the next few questions might not be marketing related or anything like that, but I think this is. It's fascinating to me, and this is our conversation. So we'll go down this path. Like, what is that guy that you got off death row? Like, when he finally has that decision made, right, and that the judge comes, it's the case is done, it's overturned, whatever the terminology is. I mean, how do you move forward with your life? I've always wondered that. Like, people that are in prison for 10 years, even 5 years nowadays, how fast technology changes. Like, when he went into prison, there was no smartphones, there was no social media, there was no Netflix, there's like, the world is just totally different. And it's, that's, I feel like, one of the biggest challenges. We don't have to make the discussion about like criminal justice reform or anything like that, but like, you put somebody in death row for 20 years. I mean,
Yeah.
that's almost worse than the death penalty, in my opinion. Just imminently waiting to die, and every so often you think you're gonna be at that point, and it's got to just destroy people. I mean, I can't imagine
Yeah.
how you move forward and don't fall back into like committing crimes, right? I don't understand
Yeah.
how that
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. I'd love to talk about criminal justice reform. Not, but that's obviously that'd be a subject by in and of itself. In his case, the conviction was vacated, the sentence was vacated, but the prosecutor was prepared to try the case all over again.
That's amazing.
And so we could have tried the case all over again, and he could have been found not guilty and walked out, or we could have tried the case all over again. There could have been a conviction, and there are innocent people who get convicted. He spent 23 years in prison. He's eligible for parole right now, and so what we ended up doing, and it was a tough decision, really, really tough decision, and it was his decision, but he ended up pleading no contest to a lesser charge, and he hopefully will be paroled early in 2020. So he's not out right now. What he is doing right now, and he's one of them, just as a lot of other clients, he's one of the brightest and obviously very grateful clients that I have. He's very well read. Back when he was in school, he tutored classmates in math. Really, really smart guy who grew up in horrible conditions. But right now, he's taking classes, getting his GED. He's able to work in the prison cafeteria. These are not things that were available to him when he was on death row. So he's doing everything he can, and we're working with his family so that when he does get out, there's going to be a smooth transition. But he's nervous about that.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
That's tough. So
Yeah,
I don't know if
yeah.
you read so Malcolm Gladwell's latest book, Talking to Strangers. It's fascinating. There's a section in the book, and this is a bigger thing it's not just from the book. It's based on a study that I think it was a bunch of MIT students put together an AI program that basically competed against judges who set bail, right? So people go up and they decide whether you get bail or don't get bail, and they set the amount of the bail. And they wanted to see if there was any bias and any problems with that process. And the only difference between the two was the AI had the same data as the judge. It was given the rap sheets, where they lived, the crimes they committed, all that stuff. The only thing it didn't have was the personal interaction, right? So the judge they have the file with all the stuff they did. It has the person's information. It knows where they came from, their background. But then they also have that face-to-face where they can ask them questions and talk to them and see their reaction. And they have that, I have a gut feeling, right? And what they found is like, I think it was 200,000 that the AI program went through that judges had also gone through. And it wasn't even close. Like the software that was built by MIT, basically, I think it was like, it did 35 to 40% better. And by better, they meant like it gave bail to the right people, didn't give bail to the wrong people, it correctly identified the highest risk offenders. And it was like the judges let out, it was like 60% of the top 5% people that were the riskiest, they let them out. And it was like out of those 5%, it was like 50% committed a crime while they're out on bail. And they said it was just, there's a bias, like even if it's not like a conscious bias, there's a subconscious bias that human beings have, because you're looking at a human being and you see a person that just might sound very confident, sound very sure of themselves, and you think, well,
Exactly.
they look a good person, made a mistake, and then you get somebody up there that's they're messing with their hands, they're a little nervous or looking down. It's like that person seems guilty. It's like maybe they're just socially awkward, right? Maybe they have autism or something. That there are so many reasons why somebody might not on the outside look like a confident person who's not going to do something wrong. And I think it's really fascinating just how much that's like displayed in our court system right now.
Yeah, I mean that goes beyond just the racial bias that has been time and time again. You're totally right. The quality of the lawyer is huge, and also the quality of the person's personal presentation is huge. And that doesn't have anything necessarily to do with whether they're going to go out and commit a crime. It just could be that they're socially awkward. You're spot on.
Yeah. Do you think at any point in our lifetime there will be more like AI machine learning brought into the legal system? Like I've always thought
Yeah,
about it,
no,
even just like stupid things like baseball, right?
right,
We've had that strike zone on ESPN for a decade plus, and it's got
right,
to be to a point where it's like it's way more accurate at calling strikes and balls than an umpire. But it's like I don't see the
yeah,
MLB ever getting rid of the umpire because it's a tradition and that's the thing, and you wonder at a point it's like, well, okay, that's baseball. The law is like we're dealing with people's life, like whether they're going to jail for a year or their life or going to get put to death. Like at some point you got to say,
right.
well, if something can do a better job and be totally unbiased, should we just allow that to? And that's a huge discussion, but I'm curious what your thoughts
Yeah,
are on
no,
that.
I think that it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, the polygraphs are not admissible.
Yep.
Yeah, obviously DNA testing has become a huge thing. There's obviously in every single case now, any investigation, they immediately want to get the smartphone and suck everything off of that to see, where your IP address, what towers it pinged off of. So obviously there's more and more technology and science that's making its way into cases. What I think would be fascinating is, we still have courtrooms where they're putting a piece of paper on a whiteboard or easel or whatever, and they're drawing diagrams to show what the scene looked like. Maybe it's a civil case or a criminal case. Maybe it's an auto accident case. But if we had all the jurors put on virtual reality headsets to actually visit that
The crime scene. Yeah.
the crime scene, to walk around, and obviously there would be a lot of debate about admissibility and reliability, and does it fairly represent what the scene actually looked at. But I think that would be fascinating in our lifetime for people to be able to actually almost leave the courtroom virtually. And I could see that happening in our children's lifetime, perhaps.
Yeah. Because
Yeah,
it is a very strange for how kind of great our Constitution is and how great our at a fundamental level maybe our legal system is and freedoms that people have and stuff. It's like it's incredibly flawed, especially if you watch like just real court cases where it's like you
right.
can just have you can be the person that is you have a public defender and they just are in a bad mood and they're doing a crappy job and you could be innocent, but like there could be just a really charismatic prosecutor who's great at picking jurors and great at talking to the
Yeah,
jurors and obviously I'm not saying this is the norm, but
yeah.
like it seems
No,
crazy that could even ever happen, right?
no. I mean, in the case I was talking about, my client in 1997, court-appointed attorney in a capital murder case. By statute, there was a cap on their fees for out-of-court time. The cap was $1,000.
It's
So
nuts.
that's statute said 50 hours of out-of-court time at $20 an hour, and that's all the time you spend researching, interviewing witnesses, writing briefs. $1,000 doesn't begin to cover it. Maybe it would cover it in 1922, maybe 1947, but that's the statute, and you can apply to get more money, but you're not going to get much money. So yeah, structurally there are tons of problems with our criminal justice system, and a lot of it's just for people out of sight, out of mind. I mean, Alabama prison, for instance, there's a lot of folks who had a possession with intent conviction, possession with intent, possession with intent. So 3 cocaine felony charges by the age of 24, life without parole. They're warehoused for the rest of their life. It's pretty bad.
Yeah,
Um,
that's insane.
yeah,
So like
yeah,
just getting back to the e-com online business stuff.
yeah.
More, no, not even that way. I'm just saying from a personal standpoint. Like, so you went from in your early career, you were doing a lot of different work and representing people like
Yep.
this guy you were talking about, and then you got into more, representing online business owners and marketers and affiliate marketers and stuff. Is that something you
Sorry.
want to do for the rest of your career? Do you at some point see yourself like, hey, this is great. I'm going to do this for another decade or two, and then I want to get back into criminal justice reform or whatever it might be. Like, what's the long term plan?
Yeah, no, I think so my wife has a nonprofit that helps women. Many are recently released from prison. It's called Together We Bake, and they do job training to help women with confidence, and they get their food safety certification, all this. So I do a lot of things in the community that are, and as a lawyer, that sort of help satisfy that need. And I've got 3 teenagers, and we're always doing stuff, and I'm inspired by them. But as a lawyer, sort of day to day, I love what I do, and I don't look maybe 5 years out or 10 years or 20 years. I just kind of maybe month to month, but But yeah, I'm having a lot of fun. At my firm, I'm the co-head of our e-commerce and advertising practice group, and just the fact that I have to constantly keep learning. If Amazon makes a change, Google, Facebook, it's might as well be Congress, and having to, I learn a lot from clients about their business issues. That helps me without disclosing confidential information about one client to another. It helps me in helping other clients.
Yeah.
I know what's coming on the bend. It could be, everything from, investigative reporter wanting to write something about a client to one competitor wanting to go after another competitor for trade secret or trademark infringement. So the variety is fun. I get a lot of energy from the clients, so I really do enjoy what I do.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's great to have a team too.
Yeah, that definitely helps because you have you move to this bigger firm, so it seems like you have a lot more resources and you have on boots on the ground, different locations, and that's got to be really really beneficial. I'm gonna I'll share a story about one of our biggest mistakes and how it almost screwed us. But while I'm doing that, I'll ask you this and make you think about it when I'm done with it. But like, what are, when you're getting people coming into you, what's the one or two things that you're seeing most commonly that you wish people that are like, let's say people are watching, that are online business owners, online marketers, would like stop doing or think twice before doing, that's leading to like the most issues? I'll let you think on that. I'm just going to share, because one of the things we did was, we have our political business and we sell collectibles, and we started that business basically in 2016 with our original Trump coin. And I remember we had 6 partners in the business, and that was a whole nother mess of issues, too many partners in the business. But the one partner who was responsible for for coming up with the design for the coin just didn't think it was a good idea, the product. He thought it was it's not going to sell, it's stupid, and kind of was very against it from day one. Because of that, basically had our like lead designer just grab something from the internet, just Google images, grab a coin design and throw it on there. We didn't know, and so we're about a month and a half in, we've sold maybe $200,000 worth of this coin, starting to take off, and we get a letter from the mint that was selling that coin design, saying, hey, we represent this company, and it's come to our attention this is their design that you're selling and not paying them. And what's crazy is we could have been sued for 1.5 times revenue, not even on profit or income. It was basically would have put us out of business at that point. Luckily we were able to negotiate with them and convince them, hey, this is going to be a big offer. Like, what if we switch and you become our supplier essentially? And they agreed to it, which is amazing. And now they're still a partner to this day, and they've made way more money doing that than they would have. But like, there are so many times like that where somebody in your team might just think this is just a silly thing, like stupid, like nothing's gonna happen, and just something as simple as grabbing an image from Google Images and throwing it on a product could have put the business out of business, which is just crazy. And I don't think enough people understand like just the gravity of small decisions and how that can bite you in the ass if something takes off. And it's scary that can happen. So that's why I was curious before when I asked you, like, are there things that you're seeing that just like, why do you do this? Why are so many people doing this? I wish they would stop doing this.
Yeah, definitely. Let me first say, people should read this. This is a e-commerce retailer legal guide, and it's got like 10 sections, each about 3-4 pages, on the most important legal issues and practical best practices affecting e-commerce retailers. So
that's awesome. And we dropped that link in the comments below, guys, if you're watching right now.
Good. Yeah. I mean, it'll take you 45 minutes to read, and each section starts off with like a hypothetical kind of day in the life of a retailer, and it's not written for lawyers. It's written, it's good. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I would say that demystifying going to a lawyer and getting good advice is probably an important thing for people to realize, that they don't need to be fearful. Think about it like a dentist. No one likes to go to the dentist because you're worried about them drilling in your teeth. But would you like to have a wider smile? Sure. There are lawyers that can help you both fight cavities and have a wider smile. And I think if you think about it like that, you can have a wider business.
I like that. It's a good analogy.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing kind of related is contracts matter. I get really frustrated when I'm asked to look at a contract that's been signed, and people just took a bunch of stuff from LegalZoom or something else that Frankensteined it together. It doesn't make any sense, and they've put themselves in a really, really bad spot. Just like consumers are bound by checking that box and agreeing to terms, the business is bound when it enters into a contract. So there could be some provider, and there's an automatic renewal term, and now they're bound to that contract for another year because they didn't cancel 30 days before the end of the first term, or indemnification provisions, or limitation of liability, or you've paid someone a lot of money to create something for you and you don't own it. The worst story would be there's a company that basically has made a business of suing their clients, and they have, I don't want to name their name now since I've disparaged them, but they had a business that had software that you could load onto your website to optimize it, and they had in their license agreement that the user can only make one copy of the software.
Yep.
Well, to do the sandbox testing you have to do before you go live with something, you're probably going to have a copy on your server, and you're going to have a copy on this developer's hard drive, maybe, and someone else, and they had code inside their software that showed when a copy had been made. So what they would do is license the software for a few $100s, and then 6 months later check in and say, hey, we want to see how that was working for you. Were you able to optimize, get more conversions on your site? Oh, that's great. You saw a 3% increase in conversions. Fantastic. And then 3 months after that, sue for breach of the license agreement, but also for copyright infringement, because the provision in the license agreement said if there's an extra copy, the license agreement terminates automatically, and that then becomes copyright infringement. So they've sued about 80 of their clients, and in those cases are seeking a percentage of the profits. And all this started because someone on the website development team saw this product being advertised, thought it's only $350. Hey, can I get the company credit card? Boom, click, 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 accept. And now, fast forward a year later, and the company's being sued for millions of dollars. So, that's an extreme example, but I could give you many, many, many. And sometimes it's not a click through. It's actually people had it and just thought, oh, I'm sure this is all fine. This is all legalese. I don't really need to understand it. Let's just hurry and get this deal done because we want to make a lot of money together. Well, you just signed away some of your largest assets without realizing it. That's what's really frustrating. I've got a client right now that invested $5 million in a company, and they got a call about a week ago saying, we're going to go under unless you invest more money, and we don't want you to lose your investment, so you send us some more money. If I'd been involved early on, I think we would have more protection than we have now. So anyway.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and imagine
Yeah,
you hear lots of stories like that on a regular basis, and just you're kind of living them with their clients. I want to ask a few more questions, but I want to make sure we switch over because we basically turn off all the free channels. So, guys, if you enjoy this interview and you want to have get your questions answered, you want to do this on a weekly basis, you got us up for paid traffic training, paidtraffictraining.com, and anybody in paid traffic training will be on in just a second. We're just going to cut the feed. Cutting.